Welcome to Teaching Truth. In our reflections this week, as we've been unpacking together the exciting account of Philip and his engagement with the Ethiopian eunuch, we've looked at the eunuch's circumstances. We've also explored the confusion which the eunuch had, not being able to understand the scriptures which he was reading. And yesterday in our reflections, we looked at the clarification which Philip gave to the Ethiopian eunuch as he sat in the chariot with him and explained the scriptures to him. For our reflections today, we want to look at the eunuch's conversion. The eunuch's conversion. Because Philip made the good news of the gospel very clear to the eunuch. He was very simple in what he shared with the eunuch. And we, like Philip, need to keep the good news of the gospel simple and clear as we share it with others with whom we may come into contact. To put it another way, Philip simply shared the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. No gimmicks, he just simply shared the good news of the gospel. Philip reminds me of the late Reverend Dr. Billy Graham, and this book, which I have on the bookshelf in my study, 1 in a Million, tells the story of Billy Graham during Mission England way back in 1984. In a chapter on the man and his message, the writer of this book, 1 in a Million, about Billy Graham, says this. He writes, "It is no criticism of Billy Graham to say that his message is unremarkable. There are many preachers able to string words together in cleverer, more colourful ways. Indeed, it is his very ordinariness which has puzzled media and other observers all summer. As the pre-mission advertising leaflet says, he uses no gimmicks, no sales talk. And yet, when he gets to his famous invitation to make a public act of commitment to Christ, I want you to get up out of your seats. Literally thousands of people do. The answer must lie in the biblical concept of spiritual gifts. Billy Graham has the gift of an evangelist. He is someone through whom the Spirit of God works to nudge people off the fence and into the kingdom of heaven. It is not so much what he says which convinces people. It is not even how he says it which persuades them. There is another power at work as he speaks, which convicts them of sin, of righteousness, and of judgment. What was true for Billy Graham was certainly true of Philip. As Philip spoke to that Ethiopian eunuch in the chariot, there was another power at work convicting the Ethiopian eunuch of sin, of righteousness, and of judgment. In many respects, like Billy Graham, Philip's message was unremarkable. There may well have been other preachers, other leaders, other disciples in Samaria, in Jerusalem and elsewhere who would have been able to string words together in a much more eloquent way. But God used the very ordinariness of Philip to engage this intellectual, clever chancellor of the exchequer. Philip, like Billy Graham, used no gimmicks, no sales talk. He simply shared the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And I believe we need to go back to the message that Jesus commissioned us to preach, that Jesus saves and Jesus alone. That's the message that Philip preached, and that's what we need to preach. No gimmicks, simply the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. You see, the Ethiopian eunuch had found in Jesus what he had not found in Jerusalem. The Ethiopian eunuch found in Jesus what he had not found in Jerusalem. All his life had been a preparation for this moment. His eloquent education had enabled him to read well and to read the scriptures. His scholarship enabled him to read the prophecies, the great prophecies of the Old Testament. His high position as Chancellor of the Exchequer made it possible for him to travel in the state coach, as it were, on this road from Jerusalem. His wealth made it possible in those days for him to buy a scroll on the prophet Isaiah from the Waterstones bookshop, as it were, in Jerusalem. His disappointment at being excluded from the temple actually brought a hunger to his heart. You see, God was working all the time in the circumstances and in the background of the heart and in the life of this Ethiopian eunuch. And God providentially used Philip to share the good news with a eunuch who was reading the scriptures but who was having difficulties understanding them. You can be the wisest PhD in your street, in your town, in your city. But as Jesus said, unless you become a little child, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. The gospel is so simple that even a child can understand it. How can I unless someone guides me with the words of the Ethiopian eunuch? Never assume that because someone opens up and reads a Bible that they can understand it. I don't understand all of what the Bible teaches, but what worries me are the bits that I do understand. And the truth is often veiled until someone explains it to them. And we have the task of opening up and sharing in an engaging, in a meaningful, in a helpful way with the Ethiopian eunuchs that God may bring into our life. We have been entrusted with the good news of the gospel, with the scroll, as it were, of the gospel message. Let me finish with this. Who are we sharing the good news with? Who are we sharing the good news with? I forever will be grateful for a godly grandmother now at home with the Lord who shared the good news with me, and for good and godly parents who took me to Sunday school. I will forever be grateful to a Sunday school teacher who faithfully, week after week, shared the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ with me. May we be like Philip. May we be those people who are ready to share the good news and to bring people by our faithfulness and by our sharing of the good news to that point where they become Christians, where they are converted and begin a relationship just like the Ethiopian eunuch did with Jesus.